One of the focuses this week in Washington has been on Obamacare and what replaces it. And yesterday, the Democrats started a new hashtag, Make America Sick Again, to try to poke fun at Donald Trump and trying to say he's going to take ownership of this. They haven't taken ownership of it at all up until now. They haven't worked with Republicans on any attempt to revise it. I mean, the many ways that they've tried to revise this through the years, they just wouldn't even talk about it, remember? Because that Republicans wanted to draw this thing back or make changes to it, and they just wouldn't even discuss it. We're joined right now by Rachel Bovard. She is Director of Policy Services for the Heritage Foundation, and we appreciate her giving us some time today. Rachel, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I read an interesting article today by a gentleman who suggests that Republicans don't need to worry about what they're going to replace this with because they ought to abandon it altogether and leave it up to the states. Is that too radical of a proposal?
Well, I think the states are definitely going to have a role to play in how Obamacare gets replaced. I mean, they are the ones that are directly responsible for, a lot of the health care for their citizens. So they're definitely going to have a role to play. However, the federal government has to have some role because of the federal insurance laws, but it's going to be dramatically scaled back, from what Obamacare is today.
What do you see as the next step here? Because I've got an interview here with Paul Ryan saying we're going to be moving as quickly as possible to deliver for the American people who are struggling under Obamacare. But what we know to be the truth is because of the way this thing was put together, unraveling it isn't going to be a 3-month or 6-month process. This might even take a couple of years.
Yeah, the healthcare system is complex. Obamacare is complex. But it looks like the first move that the Congress is going to make is to try to repeal a big chunk of Obamacare through what's called a reconciliation process. And the reason that's important is because it only requires 51 votes in the Senate as opposed to the 60 votes that, are normally required to pass something by the Senate. So that's going to be step one. Is through the reconciliation process. And then, it's going to require several more steps to really get at the heart of Obamacare and the heart of repeal. So it's going to take, I think, at least the length of this Congress, which is 2 years.
Yeah, I would assume, and we talked to Congresswoman Ann Wagner about this earlier this week, it's got to be a matter of tearing down state boundaries and opening up the markets to competition combined with reducing the requirements of each policy, because that's where the penalties come in now. If you don't buy a policy that meets all the requirements, you face some sort of penalty at the end of the year.
That's right. I think, and those penalties need to be repealed. I think that's, something that Congress has made very clear and the voters made very clear. I mean, these are the things they dislike about Obamacare. And to be honest, these are the things that are not working. So, those things need to be repealed. And then Republicans have also talked about many of the ideas that they have to improve competitiveness in the free market. That includes, being able to purchase insurance across state lines. It includes allowing trade associations and, groups to band together to purchase insurance, which reduces cost. So these are ways that the free market can be, utilized in a way that reduces cost for individual Americans.
Yeah. And, I mean, they've got several approaches to this. The Democrats claimed yesterday that Republicans didn't have a plan ready to go, but that's not really true, correct?
Yeah, that's actually just incorrect. The Republicans have many plans, actually, and a lot of individual members have written their own replacement plans. Congressman Tom Price, who's been nominated by President-elect Trump to lead the Health and Human Services Department, has a full replace plan that he's had out for several years. The Republican Study Committee, which is a group of conservatives in the House of Representatives, yesterday unveiled their replacement plan. So in reality, Republicans have an abundance of replace plans. They just have to pick one. Yeah,
and hopefully they get that done soon. And it'll be interesting to see even what happens between now and the day that Donald Trump is sworn in. I'm thinking they may have some get a decent amount of work done, at least on the House side between now and then. I think the Senate's going to get tied up if Chuck Schumer is to be believed with what he said yesterday.
Well, the Senate's the one that's taken the first move so far. Traditionally the Senate is the slower body, but it's reasonable that both houses could have a bill on President-elect Trump's desk by the time he's sworn in. A lot of conservatives want to see that, and it is possible. The Congress just has to have the will to do it.
We will hope so. Rachel Bovard from the Heritage Foundation. People can check out her thoughts at heritage.org. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. We appreciate getting you on here today. Just wanted to pick their brain. They've had a lot of good research on what these alternatives need to be. In fact, one of the gentlemen, Bob Moffett, who works there at Heritage, we had him on the show a few months back, only to find out that he was the guy back in the 90s when Hillary Clinton tried to roll out Clinton Care. Remember that? He was the guy that basically argued against that at the time. He helped write the book on the problems with this centralized health care that the Democrats have clearly been working on for many, many, many years. Even Senator Sanders was out today talking about the fact that health care is a right. Well, sorry, Bernie, but you're wrong. You can make that argument till you're blue in the face, but that's just not the case. And if this guy has any effect on this argument, I hope that he's right. That we don't need to necessarily replace this with some other monstrosity. You can hear it in how the Democrats discuss this, that what they want is a watered-down version of Obamacare. And there's a doctor named Dean Waldman. I'm trying to get him on the show next week to talk about this. But he says that's not what we need, that they need to not worry about trying to replace this thing. They need to send it back to the states. They need to let the states deal with this issue. And that way they can decide what policies are available to you, and crossing state lines won't be a problem. I love this idea. It's something that I'm hoping the folks in Washington pay some attention to, because quite frankly, it's past due, and we've got to get our brains wrapped around this. Let me get to the phone.